So let's begin.
Yeah, Dr. Millie.
Yeah. So, uh, of course, it is a very interesting topic that niacin in an anti-aging. We've
Yeah,
been knowing about niacin and its work in basic usage as a vitamin and also in cardiovascular diseases. But anti-aging is a new field altogether. And what else? I mean, it's coming from Dr. Sandeep Bhasin, who's a cosmetic and general surgeon. He
yeah.
has, I think, 2 weeks back, he gave a beautiful lecture on intermittent fasting, anti-aging, autophagy. That was wonderful. So he is also in hair transplant, vitiligo management, and melanocyte transplantation. Liposuction and cosmetic procedures is his forte. He's deeply into anti-aging and longevity practices, also an ozone practitioner. So I would request you to take this lecture ahead, Dr. Sandeep. Thank you.
So, and in case you have any problem with quality of voice, please update me
Sure,
about.
sure, sure.
Okay. So, today's topic, what we are going to discuss with everyone, and I can see there are quite a few of you there. We'll be discussing about, niacin is the molecule which we know vitamin B3, and niacin is a very complex molecule. And if you understand niacin, it has many roles. As I'll start with the history of niacin, how it started, and then how it became like, Can you see my screen? I'm doing the screen sharing. Is the screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, इसको slide show. रुको, one second. Okay. So let me start with this. First, let me tell you, we all know niacin has vitamin B3, and maybe we don't know much beyond that. It's a very, very vast topic, and I don't know whether I will be able to finish the whole today, but I have divided it into few parts. Okay. Where niacin is used, where it can be used, and what are the advantages of using niacin over other compounds. So this molecule was discovered in 1937 by Conrad Evelgen. He is an American biochemist. And at that time, pellagra became a disease which was very, very common in Italy and Europe and America and a lot of countries. And they could never understand why this disease is happening. So let me tell you a few very interesting facts. How pellagra, epidemic of pellagra came in a big way. You know, in Italy, people never used to eat maize and corn, and they used to have their staple food, whatever they were having. In 1850s and 60s, corn became a big, something very popular. People started eating corn, maize in their diet, and they shifted from their staple diet towards corn and maize. And when corn and maize became the main thing in their diet, they started developing pellagra. As you know, the corn and maize antagonizes tryptophan and decreases the formation of niacin. So that was something, it is like one epidemic happening because the shift of habits of what people are eating and what they are making their staple food. Something very similar to what is happening in present era, where people are eating a lot of carbohydrates, glucose, sucrose, and there's a big epidemic of heart diseases, fatty liver, and a lot of other problems that are going on. So very similar epidemic happened, and then Cornad Eveljahem found that if we supplement niacin to the people, it can reverse pellagra, it can prevent pellagra. Initially, niacin was called PP, pellagra prevention molecule, but later on it was called niacin, later on it was named. So that was the beginning. And what is pellagra? Pellagra has three Ds: diarrhea, dementia, dermatitis, skin problem, loose motions, and the loss of memory. That is the main thing in pellagra. So that was the first era of niacin when people started realizing, niacin is so important, it is preventing pellagra. And what is the dose of niacin to prevent pellagra? It is just 20 milligrams or 30 milligrams, not a big dose. And in the food, we don't get niacin directly. We often get it from tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid, and it is converted into niacin through a entire pathway. We'll talk about that pathway. So tryptophan is the main amino acid, which is really required to form the niacin. This is the 1930s, 40s. People used to think niacin is basically to prevent pellagra and nothing beyond that. In 1950, there was a very famous psychiatrist, Dr. Abraham Hofer, and he used niacin to treat mental illnesses, like especially schizophrenia. And he had a very interesting theory, and what his theory was: the people who have schizophrenia and mental disorders, bipolar disorders, in those patients, the non-adrenaline is converted into adrenaline in a higher amount, and this adrenaline is converted into adrenochromes. And adrenochrome is just like LSD, it's just like a drug. And people are not able to, see what is real thing, and they start living in a world of fantasy. And his thing was, if we give niacin, it will stop conversion of norepinephrine to epinephrine. It will decrease adrenochrome, and then people will not have mental problems like schizophrenia, and it could help a lot of people. But many psychiatrists never understood this, and they never accepted his theories, and it was always a controversial thing. Now, what you have to understand, Abraham Hofer used, you know, niacin in a dose like 3 grams. Remind you, 3 grams. It is a pretty high dose, what he used to give to work in schizophrenia. In niacin, very important, you must understand what is the dose that you are using, which form of niacin are you using, and for what purpose you are using. If you don't have that thing in mind, niacin is not going to work. Many people say niacin doesn't work. Of course, if you mix up, okay, what is niacin, what dose it has to be given, we are not going to get results with niacin. So he used in 3 grams of niacin. And the normal supplement we have in 100 milligrams, 50 milligrams. You look at that amount difference in the dose that he was using. And he used to combine it with vitamin C also and other supplements also. And because he was called orthomolecular physician, and he called it orthomolecular psychiatry, because using some natural vitamins, minerals to heal people's and their psychiatric problem. Anyhow, so by 2000 and then later on, this thing went away and people again forgot niacin. In 1990, niacin again became very popular as a cholesterol lowering or lipid lowering agent. And why it is so popular and why it became so, to be used, and why niacin is really to be used in lipid lowering, I will talk to you in detail today. So this is in 1990, niacin came in a big way. And then what happened in the year like 2000 to 2012 or 13, there were 2, 3 major trials, AIM High trial and a HIT trial. And both of them then debunked, or they said niacin is not really working. There are no benefits of using it as a lipid lowering or cholesterol lowering agent. We should not use niacin and this and that. So most doctors gave up niacin altogether. So that chapter was again closed from orthodox physician. Alternative medicine physicians still use niacin, and why, I'll talk to you, because this is something we have to really understand, why niacin is really important and why we should be using. Again, the dose at which niacin works for lipid lowering is something like 2 grams or 3 grams. It doesn't work in milligrams, it works in grams. It is a pretty high dose if you look at the whole thing. Okay. Then, all these things were going and niacin was being almost, shrugged and left behind, and nobody was looking into niacin. 2016, Dr. David Sinclair, he came up with something called nicotinamide ribose. Niacin can occur in 2 forms, niacin and niacinamide. Nicotine and nicotinamide, these are 2 formats, 2 forms in which niacin happens. So Dr. David Sinclair made a compound from nicotinamide, which is like niacin, and just added ribose molecule in front of it. So he added ribose molecule in front of it, and it became NMR, and he started using it for anti-aging, and he did a lot of experiments, and he's a big shot now in anti-aging and longevity, and people are very much interested to look what this can do, this molecule can do for anti-aging. So if you look at the 4 eras of niacin use, 1930s to 50s, it was for pellagra. 50 to 70 or 80s, it was more for schizophrenia and mental problems. It was into limelight. 1990 to 2010 or 12, it was more for lipid lowering, that was in limelight. And recently, its molecules or prodrugs, its drugs, NMR and NMN, they are in limelight for the anti-aging, and I'll talk why they are in limelight about it. So you look, something or other has been happening throughout, and we could never put niacin and throw it in a dustbin. It has always come in a big way, and it has always shown that it is a molecule we cannot forget, especially if you want to have some good, interesting results. Now, this talk which I prepared is a pretty long talk. I don't know whether I'll be able to finish today, but I'd like to finish niacin, especially how it is important in our cardiovascular disease, and why it is used for liver problems and schizophrenia, and these topics I'll cover today. And maybe if we like the talk, next talk I work totally on David Sinclair's work, because that's a big topic by itself. From it will we require to understand the biochemistry and how it works and what we can do, because that's a very interesting topic, which is becoming more and more popular now, especially in the longevity, anti-aging, disease reversal, and things like that. So look at this diagram, there's so many functions niacin is doing. So it's really a wonder molecule. But again, I'll tell you, niacin is like a double-edged sword. It has so many positive benefits. No other molecule does have that. At the same time, it can have very adverse side effects if you don't understand the biochemistry, what you're using, what dose you are using, how you have to use. You can also create a lot of problems for your patient. So that's very important. Don't take niacin as a very, very innocuous molecule. It is something which can create wonders, and it can create havocs also if you're not careful about it. So this is one thing I would like to just tell you. So what are the common conditions where we are using niacin and niacinamide? We can use pellagra, as I told you. Then people have been using it for osteoarthritis, type 1 diabetes control, especially niacinamide is more used, acne, skin cancer prevention, decreasing the phosphate level, especially in kidney patients, skin problems. These are very common conditions for which niacin has been used, And there are other benefits also, of niacin, what we look one of them is it is working for impotency, erectile dysfunctions, and it is also improving the brain functioning. It is being tried in the treatment of diabetes and also in fatty liver treatment. Now look at this diagram. This is the typical diagram of pellagra. This man having a skin problem. At the same time, he has a black tongue. So pellagra has this dermatitis, very bad dermatitis. And at one time, it was a big epidemic and there was no cure for it. And niacin could totally reverse it. And we don't need very high dose of niacin to control pellagra. 20 milligrams, 15 milligrams, 25 milligrams is good enough to prevent pellagra. So let me come to how niacin is produced. So, there are words that are similar. Let me tell you, niacin is also called nicotinic acid. And it has few forms. Niacin or nicotinic acid, nicotinamide or niacinamide are the two forms that were commonly available. Now we have nicotinamide ribose and nicotinamide mononucleotide. So these are four types of niacin. They're all called, they come in one category of the niacin drug, but they are not same. They are very different. Mind you that. You must understand. That's why niacin is a very complicated topic if you really want to understand. Let me tell you in brief. First, let me tell you what is the difference between niacin and niacinamide. I don't know how many of you know the difference. So let me share what is the difference. First of all, niacin, which is commonly used, I'm not talking about the extended release or the sustained release. I'm talking about the normal niacin. It causes very severe flushing of the skin. That is the landmark sign and the feature of niacin. The moment you take it, you start feeling like the entire skin is itching, burning, blood flow is there. And this is the flush called niacin flush. That's a very typical thing with nicotinic acid or niacin. Okay. Niacinamide does not have this flush. It is not linked with flush at all. The first thing that you keep in mind. Niacin means flush. Nicotinamide means no flush. That is one thing you keep in mind. Okay. Similarly, nicotinamide ribose and nicotinamide mononucleotide, they also don't have any flush. They are very recent molecules that have come up in 2015 and 16 only. So they are very two new molecules. So they also don't cause any flush. Nicotinic acid. Now, why is it called nicotinic acid? I'll show you some diagrams. If you know nicotine is from tobacco, niacin was prepared in laboratories by treating the nicotine, the tobacco, with nitric acid and oxidizing it, and it became an acid called nicotinic acid. It doesn't have any of the properties of nicotine, so don't confuse with that. but it is called nicotinic acid. That was the old name. And now in biochemistry, they still prefer to use nicotinic acid, and we call it niacin more commonly. Okay. So from where does it come? There is an amino acid called tryptophan. And there's a whole cycle by which tryptophan is converted into nicotinic acid. But what is important, 60 milligrams of tryptophan will form 1 milligram of niacin or nicotinic acid. And this pathway is called kynurenine pathway. I'll show you some slides. So this we must know, tryptophan forms niacin. Have this thing very clear that niacin is formed from tryptophan in the diet. So how is niacin formed? We make niacin in our body from tryptophan, which is an amino acid. So 60 milligram of tryptophan forms 1 milligram of niacin. And if you remember, we need about 20 milligram of niacin to prevent pellagra. So that means we need 20 times of this, 600 milligrams. That is something like 1200 milligrams of tryptophan are required daily to prevent pellagra. So tryptophan is converted to niacin by kynurenine pathway. That is the name of the pathway. We can also get niacin directly from the diet and also from supplements. Now look at this. Now this is the molecule, the nicotine, and this is nicotinic acid. They resemble very much to each other. This is nicotine. This is nicotine, tobacco. And after treating it with nitric acid, we get this molecule. Very much resembling structure-wise, but some differences are there. But function-wise, they are very, very different. Don't confuse the two. Nicotinic acid is niacin only. Okay. So this is a detailed diagram showing how tryptophan is forming nicotinic acid. And this is called kynurenine pathway. Now, why nicotinic acid or niacin is becoming so popular in anti-aging and longevity circles? It is because all the molecules of nicotine, whether it is nicotinic acid, nicotinamide, whether it is NMR or NMN, all of them ultimately form a molecule called NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Now this molecule NAD is required to form ATP in the cells, to form energy in the cells. So this is the value of why nicotine niacin is so important. Ultimately, it forms this, and this is the key treasure, NAD. In anti-aging, longevity, disease reversal, this is coming like a big molecule. If you can increase your NAD, you can help a lot of diseases, a lot of problems. That's coming in a big way now. So just remember, we'll talk a lot about NAD, especially when I come to David Sinclair's work. This is a very important. Ultimately, this is the key thing. Now we also have intravenous NAD available, not in India, but in America and other countries. There are clinics that are giving intravenous NAD also for longevity and for the other things. So just look at that, that niacin is involved for 200 reactions, and all of those reactions are because of this molecule, NAD. After all metabolism, niacin ultimately converts into NAD. This is what we have to understand. And this NAD is required for breakdown of glucose, pyruvate, isocitrates, malates, citric acid cycle. Everywhere this is like a key currency. If you don't have NAD, it's like money. You can't buy anything. You can't have anything. You're just gone. You're bankrupt. So as we grow old, we are becoming, NAD is becoming less. And the body is not listening to the signals. You're tired, you want energy, but the body cannot generate energy. Your muscles want blood flow, but blood flow is not increasing. Why? Because NAD is becoming less and less. So they say that the body, especially the muscles and the blood vessels, they are not cross-talking to each other. There's a word called cross-talk, which means they communicate with each other. That is lost. And why is it lost? Because NAD becomes less as we grow old. So this is something which we know now in physiology. NAD decreases as we grow old and many diseases happen. Okay, so how is NAD prepared in the body? It is prepared by niacin in diet by a special pathway called Price-Handler's pathway. As I told you, it's not only niacin, nicotinamide is also forming niacin, is also forming NAD. And it is forming by another pathway called Salvage pathway. Nicotinamide ribose also forming NAD by Salvage pathway. I'll just show you one diagram. Okay, this is a good diagram. Okay, oh sorry. If you look at the whole complex diagram, what I meant to say, look at this, the key molecule here is like a king is NAD. Now, where is the NAD coming up and forming from? If you look at the whole thing, the first is from the diet. Your tryptophan is amino acid, you take it. The complex reaction which goes through, which you don't have to remember, but it is called kynurenine pathway. Ultimately, this pathway is forming NAD. You can take nicotinic acid directly in your diet, and through a lot of molecules and reactions, it is forming NAD. So this is called Priest-Handler's pathway. This is called de novo biosynthesis. So tryptophan can form NAD. Nicotinic acid can also form NAD from Priest-Handler's pathway. Look at nicotinamide, the other form of niacin. It can again form NAD from the salvage pathway, another pathway. But there is one enzyme, NAMT. When we grow old, this enzyme becomes less. And because this becomes less, nicotinamide is not able to convert into NAD that efficiently. It drops. So similarly, a lot of these enzymes, as we grow old, they become less and less. So nicotinic acid is not able to form NAD. It decreases, its concentration start decreasing, and a lot of diseases start forming. That is the main thing. But look, why there are so different pathways to prepare NAD? Because it is a very, very precious molecule. Body cannot afford to have it less. So what it does is, okay, let's have it 3 different pathways. If this is not working, let this work. If this is not working, let this work. So at least it will have some NAD, because if it is not there or zero, it will become difficult for the body to survive. So body has very intelligently created different pathways to create NAD. But what you understand is you can form NAD from niacin, you can form it from niacinamide, you can form it from tryptophan also. So that is something we have to really understand, why these molecules are really very important. And this is something which is coming up now, why niacin is really, really important. And just a little bit of biochemistry. Nicotinic acid, basically, it forms nicotinic acid mononucleotide, which converts to nicotinic acid adenine dinucleotide, and it forms NAD. Similarly, nicotinamide is changed to nicotinamide mononucleotide and nicotinamide dinucleotide. So just one step in between. You look, nicotinamide can be changed into NAD very easily. Only one step is there. Niacin or nicotinic acid require 2 steps to become into NAD. So it's a longer pathway to change. So this is more efficient, provided this enzyme is working. If this enzyme is deficient, then you don't form NAD, it becomes less. So what is the way to activate NAMT? So just understand, by doing your fasting, calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, you are activating your NAMT. Again, that fasting autophagy is coming here. Very importantly, if you take your nicotinamide and you're having a very high calorie food and not fasting, not doing calorie restriction, it is not going to give you the adequate results. Okay, so that is something you have to understand. The other thing that activates NAMT is exercising. If you do good exercising, this really activates your NAMT enzyme. Similarly, if you combine nicotinamide with the compounds like resveratrol or thiostelbene, these are like SIRT1 stimulators, this enzyme is further activated. So we never give nicotinamide alone if we want it for anti-aging. We always combine it with the SIRT1 agonist. If you remember the last talk, we said SIRT1 is the pathway for anti-aging, and red wine or resveratrol is the main molecule for that. So always combine nicotinamide with resveratrol or with the thiostelbene or something like that. It is SIRT1 activator. So combination of nicotinamide with that really activates this, and we can form NAD. Now look at this molecule, nicotinamide ribose, which Dr. David Sinclair came up with. And this is a molecule which he introduced. You look, it again forms nicotinamide mononucleotide, same like nicotinamide, and then form NAD. Now advantage is this enzyme is not required for this to convert into this. So much higher concentration of nicotinamide ribose is converted into NAD compared to nicotinamide. Now the problem is that nicotinamide is not that expensive, hardly 500, 600 rupees you'll get one bottle. Nicotinamide ribose, 250 milligram, one bottle is costing presently like 7,000, 8,000, and even more also if you want to increase up to 1,000 grams per day. It comes like 14, 15,000 per month. That is the difference in the price between this molecule, and niacin is even cheaper than nicotinamide. So these are very, 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 cheap drugs that are there, and these are really, really very expensive drugs that are available. So, but what we really want is this NAD. Okay. So if you can understand for the patients, okay, how can we increase NAD giving nicotinamide or niacin? What we need to keep in mind. So we can reduce our cost and also get good results with NAD formation and anti-aging. And we'll talk about NAD in greater details. So the production of NAD or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is by two pathways, de novo by tryptophan, okay, salvage pathway, which again has two ways, by nicotinamide and nicotinamide mononucleotide through NAMT enzyme. This enzyme is a rate limiting enzyme. And through nicotinamide ribose to nicotinamide ribose, which is changed to NAD, and nicotinamide is SIRT1 inhibitor and NAMT works by negative feedback loop. What it means is, suppose you take nicotinamide in a very high dose, then it can have detrimental effects also. So never take nicotinamide in a very high dose. Take it in something like 100 milligram or 200 milligram, especially if you want as a longevity and increasing your NAD. Because high dose of nicotinamide is inhibiting SIRT1, which is something opposite of what we would like to do. In anti-aging, we want to activate SIRT1. This is longevity structure. Okay. Okay, now let's me come to that. Again, I'm again recapitulating three major pathways to create NAD. De novo synthesis from tryptophan. De novo means inside the body itself. Praise handler from nicotinic acid and salvage from the nicotinamide and nicotinamide mononucleotide or nicotinamide ribose. The three pathways to create one molecule, NAD, which is the main molecule. This is something I was just, so you can get from tryptophan, from niacin, from nicotinamide, and also from nicotinamide ribose, you can get the same NAD. The highest concentration that you get is from here, but it's quite expensive, you know. Okay. So this is something we, in a nutshell, about niacin. So what are the various forms of niacin? You know, as I said, it is the niacin, nicotinamide, nicotinamide ribose, and nicotinamide mononucleotide. Now this molecule, nicotinamide mononucleotide, is a very, very new molecule, so I will not talk about it. So just forget about it. We have three molecules, and nicotinamide ribose came in 2015 in the market. It is a very new molecule now. So, and this has come, but still it's a very new molecule. So still not much studies are there on that. I told you what are the differences. Niacin causes skin flushing. Again, niacin that is available in the market has three formulations. The immediate release niacin, which causes flushing. The extended and sustained release niacin, which does not cause flushing. Now, understand, you know, there always have been that we have tried to change the natural things according to what we like in as a human tendency. And when we do that, we lose what was there in the natural thing and we don't get the benefit. This is what has happened with niacin time and time again. The flushing that niacin has, people can't tolerate it. Because they can't tolerate it, they change extended release and sustained release. Extended and sustained release of niacin are very hepatotoxic. They cause liver damage. And then niacin came into a lot of problems and controversies and it had to be stopped. But the problem was they changed the original molecule of niacin, which the nature had prepared, which is there in the body. It is something like using your natural hormones and using change. If you change the molecules of these hormones, which have been biologically changed, you know, synthetically changed. So the chemical hormones have a lot of problems. So niacin, if you use in the form of its originally as it was meant, where it causes flushing, it has a lot of benefit. It is still one of the best molecules for heart disease. Why? I'll tell you. Nicotinamide does not cause flushing. Nicotinamide does not work for heart disease. Now remember this one, niacin, if there is no flush, there is no advantage for the heart problem. Niacin, if there is no flush, it does not help for your mental problems also. Abraham Hofer used to say if niacin is not causing flush in the schizophrenic patient, it means it is not working. He used to look for flushing. He used to wait the patient to have flushing. And people don't want flushing. That is the major problem with the whole thing where it goes. So it is a very harmless thing, you know, if you look at the whole thing, why it happens. And One trial that happened with niacin, and they combined it with a molecule called lopropine to stop that flushing. And they found niacin didn't give any result. And they discarded niacin without understanding it was not because of niacin. It was because the other molecule lopropionate, which they added to niacin, which blocked all the actions of niacin. So no flush, no cardiac effect, no flush, no mental effect, no effect on the mental problem of the patients. Okay, so this is something we have to really understand. And then I just tell that sustained release, extended release niacins are not really very good. They can be dangerous. They should not. All the problems in literature have happened whenever they've shifted from fast acting niacin to sustained release or extended release niacin. So please do not use extended release or sustained release niacin. If you want to use immediate release niacin and tell the patient it will have flushing. Tolerate the flushing, that is the best thing. And if you get accustomed to it, it becomes normal. But some people can't tolerate niacin, a flush. So that is another thing. So for cardiac problems, mental problems, niacin is still the molecule of the choice. Nicotinamide is more anti-inflammatory. It has been used in prevention of type 1 diabetes, especially with L-carnitine. It has been used with skin cancer, especially basal cell carcinoma of the skin treatment. It is being used in skin preparations like, acne prevention and things like that, melasma as a topical preparation. It is very strongly anti-inflammatory, nicotinamide. So it's more for skin, derma, anti-aging in that way, skin. Nicotinamide ribose is used to boost your energy level as we grow old. So that's another molecule. And I said the cost is very different. These two are very reasonable, not very expensive, niacin and niacinamide. So niacin means heart problems, brain problems. Nicotinamide means joint problem, anti-inflammatory, diabetes, and also for skin issues. Nicotinamide is there, the skin preparations quite a lot. Nicotinamide ribose, again, totally for, it doesn't have any effect on cholesterol. It doesn't have any effect on the schizophrenia or any conditions like that. It is only to boost your level of energy. So their indications are very different. Is it clear? Yeah, Dr. Mili. Hello. Dr. Mili? Okay. So I just want to ask, is everybody understanding what I'm saying, or is it too much of what I've shared with all of you? Okay. वो देखने किसी का chat में. Or there's one question. Doctor, for recovery of COVID, which niacinamide is best? Is nicotinamide ribose is okay? See, I cannot recommend niacin for COVID recovery. I haven't come across any paper like that you can use nicotinamide or niacin for COVID recovery. Means I'm not aware of any paper like that. So I wouldn't say that it is a treatment for COVID. Okay, so this is something which I want to just tell you. So if any of you have any question, please ask either in the chat or in the question and answer, because Dr. Mili is supposedly not there. So I don't know what's happening with you all. Is the voice clear to all of you? Can I have feedback? Okay, so this is what I want to just tell you, okay, that these are different molecules. This is nicotinic acid, more for heart. So nicotinic acid is this molecule. Nicotinamide is very similar but little different. You can look at it. Somebody raised hand. Just check.
Sir, voice clear hai.
Clear hai voice? Somebody
Yes.
raised hand. I don't know. I got a message. So Dr. Mili kidhar hai isme?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. So it is clear, very much clear. Everything is
No, because,
you please continue. Suddenly,
it's a very technical stuff. So I thought maybe nobody's getting anything and I'm not getting any feedback.
no, it is okay.
If you have any questions, you can ask me and we can go slow and we can take more sessions also. So anyhow,
Sure.
look at this structures, very close structures, nicotinic acid, nicotinamide, and this is nicotinamide ribose. This is the main molecule that I talked. Look at this structure. This resembles nicotinamide very much. Look, and this is the ribose ring combined with it. You see that? This is the main currency for energy. Main currency for energy. If you don't have it, you don't have energy. Then things can't happen. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of niacin? Niacin is useful for preventing pellagra. It lowers cholesterol. It is very cheap drug, but it causes flushing. And then there are three major side effects with niacin. Liver toxicity, as I told you, which is more with sustained release and extended release. Some glucose intolerance that is there, okay? And also, it also has sometimes some increase in uric acid and problems like that. But these are not very major problems and they can be all managed. Now, one thing more I would like to clear it right now. Why do these problems happen with niacin? What is the reason for these problems to happen? One major reason why this happens is niacin as a molecule is removed from the body by adding to glycine and methyl groups. So you must be aware something called methylation is there in the body, very important thing. If you don't have CH3 or methyl groups in the blood and in the body, they become less, a lot of diseases start happening. And one common thing that you see in the blood is homocysteine level goes up. You have many diseases coming up, and the simple solution is you take vitamin B, or you take some other vitamins, okay, to reduce homocysteine. So that is the main thing, that methyl groups are very important for the body. What happens when you take niacin? It is removed from the body through urine by combining to the methyl groups through methylation. So you start losing your methyl groups. So there is deficiency of your methyl groups. So you have to get some supplements to manage that methyl disorder. Methylation is a different topic by itself. So basically we have to give them choline, lecithin, glycine, or some form of methyl donor group if you want to prevent the side effects with niacin and niacinamide, and which most people are not aware of. They don't know the biochemistry part very well. So they miss on that. So when you are giving niacin and niacinamide, one is never use a sustained release or extended release of niacin. That is number one. Number second, combine them with the methyl donors. Which are the common methyl donors? You know, lecithin, choline, inositol. These are the common, and vitamin B12. These are the methyl donors. Methylcobalamin. These are the very common methyl donors. So when you combine it with niacin, then deficiency of methyl group will not happen. This is something we should always keep in mind. Similarly, niacinamide again raises NAD, and I told you it's very close to NAD structure, but its efficacy declines with age and declines with stress. It can also inhibit SERT enzyme if it is used in very high dose. Do not use nicotinamide in a very high dose. We can use niacin in a high dose, 2 grams or maybe 1.5 to 2 grams or 1 gram, but do not use niacinamide in a high dose. Niacinamide, we should not cross like 200 milligrams at the most, not more than that, because it can block your SERT1 enzyme. Nicotinamide ribose, again, this is especially to raise NAD. It doesn't have any effect on your cholesterol or anything else. And it is very safe, doesn't cause diabetes, doesn't cause liver toxicity, no flushing, none of the side effects that are there with that, but very, very expensive. So you look at this nicotinamide ribose is the new molecule for anti-aging. Very expensive, but it has some of its benefits. So again, you can see that 3 pathways to make one molecule. And why is NAD so important? NAD is required for repair of your DNA. There are pathways for that called PARP pathways. It activates SIRT2 anti-aging. It activates AMPK, again longevity. All these are activated by NAD. That is why it is important. Then NAD is also very important for mitochondrial biogenesis, forming your mitochondria, activating your antioxidant defense system, protein quality control, optimizing your mitochondrial performance, healthy aging. That is the main thing with NAD. If your NAD is down, DNA repair is not there, cytokines are not activated, AMPK is down, the aging goes down. And also your mitochondria do not perform. So what happened with all that? Your level of energy stops dropping down. As you grow old, you get very tired very easily. Your muscles you start losing your muscles. Even if you're exercising, you're losing your muscles. Why? Because energy is less. Okay. Similarly, energy is required for calcium mobilization inside the cells. And this is very important for controlling insulin secretion of the beta cell, muscle contraction, T side lymphocyte activation, and things like that. So as I said, in 1950s, Abraham Bruford was using niacin in like 3 grams per day for schizophrenia and combining it with vitamin C in a high dose. So he used combination of vitamin C with the niacin, and that is something he combined together, and he got good results in schizophrenia. I would suggest that a low dose of niacin, like 500 milligram, or maybe you should never start with 3 grams initially. Start with like 200, 300, 500. Slowly build up your niacin dose, and never go to 2 and 3 grams straight away, because you have to check your liver enzymes, you have to check your blood sugar, you check for your uric acid level, so that no side effects happen. Go slow. Add methyl donors to them. Slowly build up your niacin. The body has to get used to the flushing that it is that we're giving. And niacin as a supplement should be taken in the night, not in the morning. And on the other hand, nicotinamide ribose should be taken in the morning. There's a reason, biochemical reason behind it. So this is the theory of Hofer of adrenochrome, as I told you. And then niacin decreases the formation of adrenochromes. And adrenochromes are like LSD drug inside the brain. And people can't see what is the reality. Now let me come to a very important topic where niacin have been found very useful. Very recently, in 2017 and 18, papers have come on them. And that condition is called non-alcoholic fatty liver. Very common, if you send somebody for ultrasound, the doctors would always write fatty liver. And we have almost got used to the ultrasound reports. 80% of our patients would come with this fatty liver, and we never give a second thought to it also. What does it mean? First, I must tell you that fatty liver is of 2 types, NAFL or non-alcoholic fatty liver. I'm talking about the people who are not taking alcohol. Okay, that's alcoholic fatty liver is different altogether. And there's something called NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Now both of them resemble very closely. Both of them are fat, but the only thing is in the NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, there is also fibrosis of the liver happening. And 20% of these NASH patients can come into liver failure or cirrhosis. They will require liver transplant. And it's a big epidemic that's going to happen, and this happening in a big way. People are having liver failure in a big way. Why is it happening? It is happening because too much of carbohydrates, glucose, and also fructose. That is the big thing which we often miss. Too much of fructose is equally and even worse than glucose. And where do we get fructose in? We get fructose in fruit juices. We get fructose in honey. We get fructose in many places, and even cold drinks, sodas. That's a big source. People that are drinking cold drinks, sodas, that's a big source. And now there's papers that are coming that sucrose is 6 times more dangerous. Fructose is 6 times dangerous than glucose. So ultimately, all this is causing insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and liver failure. So this is something I said, non-alcoholic and alcoholic fatty liver. Okay. So there is an impaired metabolism in the liver. And we must understand somebody with fatty liver, if he is going towards NASH, he can end in the liver failure. We must tell our patients that the way out is they must start losing weight, calorie restriction, calorie restriction, calorie restriction. I know one doctor, Dr. Ford Brewer, and he is into preventive medicine, and he says one thing: you can't supplement your way out of your illnesses, and you can't medicate yourself out of your illnesses. You have to change your lifestyle. Supplements are important, medicines are important, but equally important is your lifestyle. If you are loading yourself with calories, you can't avoid from liver cirrhosis. You can't avoid from liver becoming. So all this fat deposit that's happening, and one thing which I realized is that free fatty acid, which is released from the liver, they have got cytokines. Cytokines is something we are hearing a lot in COVID era, cytokine syndrome. So what does it mean? The free fatty acids circulating in our blood are big source of inflammation. The more fats in the blood, more inflammation in the blood. And the theories are telling Alzheimer's is an inflammatory disease, coronary heart disease is an inflammatory disease, diabetes is an inflammatory disease. All major diseases of illness are because of inflammation. And one source of inflammation are the free fatty acids that are circulating inside the blood. So reduce your free fatty acids and everything would start becoming better. So ultimately it boils down to autophagy, lifestyle modification, lose weight. This is the recommendation. Lose 7% or 10% of the body weight if you want to prevent liver failure ultimately. Okay. So when you lose your weight, you start reducing your adipose cytokine secretion. These are the inflammatory cells. Adipocytokines are cytokines that are coming from the fat. They are called adipocytokines. So you know cytokine, inflammatory cells, and adipo means fat. So the more you lose your weight, the more your fat becomes less, the less is the inflammation. So I used to wonder, why do people in metabolic syndrome have very high C-reactive protein? What is the source of this? And now it's very clear to me, source is no, it's the fat cells that are circulating, which are increasing your C-reactive protein, inflammation. Okay? There's another story which is coming up in a big way. There are some people who are not very fat, they are very thin, but they still have fatty liver. And the studies are telling these thin people with fatty liver, they are equally bad metabolic syndrome. They are equally more prone to liver disease, diabetes, heart problems, as compared to people who are obese and have got fatty liver. So irrespective whether you're thin or fat, if you have a fatty liver, you are prone to metabolic disorders and liver failure. So this is something, in your ultrasound, if you see fatty liver, do not ignore it. It's a very big thing. Okay, so what are lipotropic factors? Lipotropic factors are those substances which can remove the fat from your liver. The more the fat in the liver, more toxic the liver becomes. Is it clear? So we need some substances. What are those substances? Look at them. We talked about them. Choline, lecithin that you take from the soya and from other thing, lecithin, choline, betaine, methionine, inositol. Now all these are also methyl donors. I'll talk about methylation in one special class, but remember all of them are methyl donor, very important. And I'm telling you, if you want to use niacin in high dose, never use them without these compounds. Combine your niacin with these methyl donors. Use with choline, betaine, methionine, inositol, glycine, folic acid, vitamin B12. Combine them with niacin. Niacin needs to be balanced, It's like yin yang. Niacin is a very yang molecule, very fiery molecule, which has a lot of fire inside it, which needs to be cooled down. So that fire is cooled down with these methyl donors. Remember this. So if you're taking niacin, give them lecithin, give them choline, give them betaine, give them methionine, inositol, trimethylglycine, glycine. These are the things they must be having. Okay. Okay. So how is niacin helping in the NASH or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis? This is a very dangerous situation. 20% people will go into liver failure, remember. So all fatty livers are not dangerous. Non-alcoholic fatty livers are okay, not very bad, but NASH is very dangerous. So differentiate the two. There are ways we can differentiate. So niacin is an inhibitor of lipolysis in the adipose tissue. It is an inhibitor of an enzyme called diacylglycerol acyltransferase in the hepatic cells. So it removes the fat from the liver cells. So combined with these molecules, use niacin along with them up to 500 milligram or 1000 milligram, and you can prevent again fatty liver. There are other treatments also, especially vitamin E, saroglitazone, and pentoxifylline, statins, obeticholic acid that have been used, and their studies are going on them. But papers have come for niacin in a big way to be used in NASH. Okay, so this is something which comes. Now I've come to a very interesting topic and very, very useful topic for people to understand. I know many of you are doctors, and especially very important, why niacin is a drug which I still consider the best drug for lipid lowering, and which most doctors are not using now, and why they are not using. A niacin flush benefits heart disease patients by opening blood vessels to improve the circulation to the part. What does it mean? No flush, no benefit. If your niacin is not flushing, you are not going to get the benefit. So use the immediate release niacin, not extended release, not sustained release. Look into that. Start with a low dose, 500 milligrams, slowly build up your dose. Don't jump to 3 grams initially. Even 1 gram is good enough. Okay. Take niacin for cholesterol troubles. Dr. Sinatra, you know, Dr. Sinatra has written a lot of books on preventing heart disease and is a very famous authority in preventing heart disease. What I want to tell you is there are 3 things: triglycerides, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein. Now, triglyceride is like a mother molecule from which we form both LDL and HDL, low density and high density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein carries the fat away from the blood vessels to the liver. It is clearing the blood clot, the fat which is deposited in the blood vessels. Low density lipoprotein is bringing the fat from the liver to the blood vessels. It is depositing the fat in the blood vessels. Remember this now. So LDL, high density lipoprotein, which is called the good cholesterol, is actually a scavenger which carries all the dirt from the blood vessels. It is like opening up your blood vessels. And LDL is a bad cholesterol which is blocking. And triglyceride is like a mother which is forming both the molecules together. Okay, so this is something we know. So we know that HDL is a good guy, and we know it from our very studies that HDL means good cholesterol, LDL means bad cholesterol. And why? It clears your arteries, it blocks your arteries, simply. Now look at this diagram. I like this diagram very much. LDL is depositing cholesterol or fat in your blood vessels. HDL is shoving that or taking that fat away from your blood vessels to the liver and clearing it and giving it a clear vessels. So what is very important I want to tell you here is most medicines that we have, including statins and fibrates and this and that, till present, they can only lower your LDL. None of them can raise HDL significantly, except for niacin. And what is there is to clear your blood vessels or your plaques which are deposited. Niacin is the only molecule which can do that. No molecule till present. There are some studies going on. One molecule may come up, but still not in the market yet. That niacin is the only molecule as of present which can raise your HDL, which can clear your all blocked arteries. So what is the way to lower your heart disease? You want to lower your LDL and you want to increase your HDL. So niacin works superb in that, and I'll show you papers on that. No molecule is coming. Statins are nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. The only thing is that dose of niacin has to be like 1 gram, 2 grams. It doesn't work in 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams for that. The other thing is you should combine niacin with vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is another molecule which clears the calcium deposit from the blood vessels through G proteins and immunomodulins and other things. So niacin with vitamin K2 can help to open up your blood vessels. Statins will lower down your low density. So I'm not against statins. Statins are okay. So at one level, you are decreasing low density lipoproteins, and other level, you are increasing your HDL. This is the ideal situation. So combination of a statin with niacin with vitamin K2 would be something very ideal. You know, there is a molecule in the market now called PCKS9, okay, Repatha, with the name of Repatha, which is available now, which lowers your LDL dramatically, like 20, 30, something. And my theory is if we can combine Repatha with niacin and vitamin K2, and along with calorie restrictions and diet, we can help to open up these blocks in a big way, because, you know, niacin will raise HDL by 30% and Repatha will make LDL up to 20 or 30. These are lowest which we can get by any medicine till now. That is one hypothesis I have. Combination of PCK9 molecules with niacin with vitamin K2 can be very useful to open up the blocked coronary arteries and help us to open our blood calcium score of the arteries in a big way. So that is one thing. Now, another thing, why niacin is so important. There is something called lipoprotein A, which most doctors don't look into. They don't look into because there is no medicine to work on it. There is no medicine which can really work on lipoprotein A. It is a genetic thing, and especially the blacks have very high lipoprotein A. And if lipoprotein A is there, it causes more thrombosis or clotting of the blood. And there is no medicine available in our drugs which can lower down lipoprotein A. The only molecule is niacin. Again, this is something genetic. So niacin works at gene level. It lowers your lipoprotein A at a very deep level, which no other medicine is able to do. So one, it raises your HDL. It also lowers your lipoprotein A, which no other molecule can do. So what niacin is doing, no other molecule is doing till date. Okay. So that is something I want all you to keep in mind, that nicotinic acid therapy markedly increase high density lipoprotein. Just look and study which molecule is doing that. There's no other molecule presently doing it. Some are on the way in pipeline. Maybe they will come 1 or 2 years down the line. I can't say about that. It decreases lipoprotein A concentration. It's the only molecule to do that, and shifts small, low density lipoprotein particles to buoyant LDL particles. Okay. All these changes in the lipid are considered cardioprotective. Now, there is one thing more which I want to tell you. And you know what is the most important ratio which very few people look into heart disease? It is the ratio between triglyceride and high density lipoprotein. If your triglyceride is very high and HDL is very low, there's a marker for the heart disease much stronger than LDL and HDL. Okay, because no molecule till now works on HDL, so no molecule can shift this ratio significantly. They can only reduce triglyceride to some extent, like fibrates reduce triglycerides, omega-3 fatty acids reduce, but they don't increase HDL. Niacin is the only molecule which decreases triglyceride significantly and increases HDL significantly. So this ratio is made very optimal if you're using niacin along with statins. I'm not saying don't use them with statins, combine them with statins, combination. But again, if you're using niacin, please check their liver functions, check their blood sugars, uric acid, and go slow. Do not jump, and always give them methyl donors. We have talked about them, betaine, methane, choline. Do not use niacin alone without methyl donors. So this is something, you know, again, I'm trying to show that HDL clears the arteries and LDL blocks the arteries. Look at that, this, you know, HDL is taking the cholesterol and fat back to liver. LDL is taking and depositing it in the cells. And this is the ratio that we want to. Triglyceride to HDL ratio. The more it is 1:1 or 2:1, the better it is. And niacin is one molecule which can do that. Okay, so this is something. So there are other, for triglyceride, we have fibrates, we have niacin, omega-3 fatty acids. But niacin also increases HDL, which others are not doing. Okay, so you look at niacin blocking, how does it decreasing the free fatty acid? Now, as I told you, free fatty acid are the markers of inflammation. Niacin is decreasing free fatty acid. It is decreasing adipocyte cytokines. It is decreasing inflammation in the body. Okay, and also it is increasing HDL. This is something very superb which no molecule is able to do. Look at that. It is blocking the uptake of HDL by the liver, so HDL level goes up. It blocks the transfer of free fatty acid from the adipose to the fat. So fat are able to release their adipose tissue which are there in the fat. So that is the thing. So what are the net effects? Niacin can reduce LDL by 10 to 20%. It is the most efficient agent for increasing high density lipoprotein, which I am telling you the most important thing for preventing heart disease. It lowers triglyceride by 20 to 35%. Niacin should be used in combination with statins because we don't want to give very high dose of niacin. As I was telling you, it inhibits lipolysis, but the dose have to be in 1 or 2 grams, not in milligrams. It doesn't work in 1 or 2 milligrams if you want to use it for cholesterol and other things. So this is something, you know, you look at it, it is blocking the release of free fatty acids, decreasing the triglyceride in the blood, and also decreasing the release of fat from the liver. So these are like, you know, desirable range where we want HDL to be above 60 if possible, and LDL to be low, less than 120, and triglyceride to be less than 150. These are things. And these are the various papers that have come, you know. High niacin is affecting our lipid profiles and in a positive way. So if you look at it, you know, this is what is the whole thing. So it can raise your HDL by 15 to 35%, but be careful with the dosages. Don't jump. Okay. So this is, again, I'm repeating, it's the only available agent that significantly raises high density lipoprotein. And also it is a HDL raising drug. Okay. Yeah. I think I will end the session here because it becomes too long otherwise. and I'll take up some questions. And there's a big topic more for NAD, and maybe if we like it, we'll have it for the next time. If people like the whole subject, so then I can take it. So this recommendations: check your liver enzymes every about 2 months or so when you are putting somebody on niacin. Okay, you must check their LFTs and look their lipid profiles and see how they are changing, especially their LDL and things. Keep a check on their blood sugar, because I said sometimes it has a risk of destabilizing blood sugar, but normally it settles down with time. So these are few recommendations what we have. Okay,
Uh,
so I'll stop here, and maybe we'll take next time.
okay.
Yeah,
Dr. Sandeep,
yeah. I'll like
uh,
questions if there are any questions, and what people.
yeah, so I had a question. Why do you need to check your liver enzymes, and what is the changes? What are the changes which you are looking at?
See, as I told you, the main problems which have happened in all the studies have happened with sustained release and extended release niacin. And sometimes
Okay.
what is happening is the patient is, and because this immediate release niacin is available in the supplemental stores easily. Sustained release
Mhm.
niacin is only doctors can prescribe. That you can't get it like that in the stores. What happened
Mhm.
many times when patient has been taking niacin and they went and told the doctor, I've been taking this drug, niacin, and I've got good results. What doctor do invariably is, because they can't control the drug which is available over the counter, they write it in, the sustained release or extended release, because they can't control somebody buying over the counter medicine. But the niaspan or things like that are only available with doctor's prescription. They are not available like that. So whatever studies I have read is, the doctor shifted their patient from the immediate release niacin to sustained release or extended release niacin. Major problem happening. And then the LFTs went up, SGOT, SGPT, things like that. And if you're checking your liver functions and you can stop it in timing, then nothing bad happens. But you have to be aware of it. Don't be unaware of this fact. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's a very strong molecule, no doubt about it, no doubt about it. But the benefits what it can give, no other molecule can give.
Okay. Can you put out that dosage recommendation slide again?
Uh, which is
Or what do you suggest as
okay.
dosage recommendation for somebody who has high cholesterol and low HDL at the age of 45 or something?
Okay.
Uh,
So, let me tell you what these are written books, but I don't believe in these. See, first, go slow with your niacin. Never jump with high doses. Start
yes,
with
because
niacin.
it leads to flushing. So
Flushing
that's
is one
some.
thing. It can destabilize your blood sugar. It can increase uric acid and liver things also.
Hmm,
Go slow.
hmm.
Start with
Okay.
something like 500 milligrams. If even that's too much, start with 200 milligrams. Slowly build up. For cholesterol, I would say 1 gram or up to maximum up to 2 grams. Do not cross 2 grams. And I would be more comfortable at 1 gram or 1.5 grams, not more than that. Is it right?
Okay.
For cholesterol,
Okay.
for somebody who's having bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, give them start with 500 milligrams, go up to 1 gram, and along with whatever medicines they are taking, antipsychotic medicines, you can expect good results in them. But
Okay.
when you're giving for these patients, always add vitamin C to that. Okay. And as I
Okay.
told you, niacin should never be given without methyl donors, betaine, choline, lecithin, all those things. Always combine your niacin again and again. I'm telling you, with methyl donors. Most people are not aware of this fact. The
Hmm, hmm.
niacin is released from the body by methylation. You are losing your methyl groups. And one
Okay.
reason why complications happen with niacin is methyl group goes down.
Hmm,
Is
hmm,
it right?
hmm, hmm.
So that is one
Okay.
thing. And I won't suggest sustained release and extended release. People are using it, but I won't suggest them because there are more complications with them.
Okay. What are the side effects or the niacin toxicity symptoms?
Uh, as I told you, three major problems: hepatotoxicity, blood sugar instabilities, and increased uric acid.
Okay. Okay.
So these are the major things. And if you want to look into the whole thing, this is this is nicotinic acid or the niacin. It has got two pathways by which it is excreted. One pathway is it is forming NAD, which is something useful. Okay. Other pathway is called nicotinic acid, and the glycine. Glycine is a methyl donor. It combines with the glycine and it is excreted out. Now, when it is forming with the glycine and excreted out, this pathway, it causes flushing also. Okay, so this is the major thing. So this glycine conjugate is causing flushing. So it's not bad. Flushing is not bad. It doesn't cause any major problems. It is this pathway, hepatotoxic pathway, which is not really good. And so what should be done? Number one, sustained release pathway, niacin mostly is metabolized by this pathway, not by this pathway. So we should not take sustained release and extended release niacin. Second, niacinamide we should not take in high doses, not more than 200 or 300 milligrams. Niacin we can take in more doses. Is it clear? The reason is niacinamide goes through this pathway majorly, hepatotoxic pathway majorly. If you are using niacinamide, please do not cross more than 200 or 300 milligram, not more than 500 at the most. I won't say even don't go up to 500 also. But niacin you can go, because niacin mostly goes through this pathway, flushing. So flushing is better than hepatotoxicity. These are two alternatives. Niacinamide is going mostly into hepatotoxicity. So niacinamide should not be given in high doses, low doses only. Are you getting that?
Okay.
This is niacinamide. NAM is niacinamide. Nicotinamide. Do not cross more than 300 milligrams. Is it right? Niacin you can go. Yeah. 100 to 100 grams. Yeah. Okay. And you are losing. So glycine is a good molecule. Trimethyl glycine betaine is a good molecule to supplement along with niacin. Clear?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is this chart clear to everyone? There are two pathways, one flushing pathway, one hepatotoxicity pathway. So we want the niacin to go in this pathway, not in this pathway. The niacin which causes flushing, it goes down here. The niacin which doesn't go into flushing, it goes down here. What?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any other question asked in the chat.
But has the talk been useful for people? I don't know. What are the feedbacks?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. So I have used niacin up to only 400 mg in few patients, but we always give B12, along with it. But choline and lecithin and other vitamin C we need to add. So that is a new thing we've learned today.
For what condition have you used niacin?
So this was for diabetic complication.
Like which complication?
So it was general. So the person had, suffering from diabetes from long time, and to prevent complications further. So there was a lot of medications advised along with one of the things was niacin because of the cholesterol lipid profile which came up.
Right.
And the
flushing one or non-flushing one?
Flushing. No, non-flushing one is the new entry. I've not seen the sustained release. I've not seen off the counter.
You can't buy it. Doctors have to write it.
Yeah. So this we buy from somebody who makes nutraceuticals. So this was it was not from the sustained release. It was from the fast release niacin.
Yeah. There are some questions, Dr. Mealy. I can see if you can, if you already give statins, can you mix with niacin to reduce the cholesterol? I think somebody has asked.
Okay, I can't see it in my chat box, but if you can see, please.
So I'll go with that. And what I'll say is that, when you're looking at the lipid profile, just don't look at low density lipoprotein alone. Look at lipoprotein A, look at HDL, look at triglycerides, look at low density lipoprotein. And you must look what is the ratio between triglycerides and your low density and high density lipoprotein. As I said, the high density lipoprotein are more effective in clearing your arteries than low density lipoproteins. What is the level of the low HDL after your statins? Are they optimal? Are they above 60 or not? What is the level of your lipoprotein A? Is it less than 100 or is it quite high? So look into that. If your lipoprotein A is pretty high and your HDL is not up to 60, it is like 30s and 40s even after giving statins. This is a big indication to add niacin. Because statins have not been able to increase your HDL, they have not been able to decrease your lipoprotein A, they have not been able to lower down your triglyceride to that level. So in that case, niacin can be added, but you can start with 500 milligram, go up to 1 gram, 1.5 gram, and check it then, you know. So that is important. Look at the reports. As I said, there are many medicines for LDL, but for HDL, this is the only molecule we have till present. Okay.
Okay.
So one more question is niacin. If niacin inhibits lipolysis, does it hamper beta oxidation of fatty acid? No. In fact, there are papers, you know, and what people are using is niacin with metformin or berberine. They are using for weight loss preparations. And also niacin is being used for fatty liver, as I told you. Is it right? To remove the fat from the liver. So niacin with metformin causes good amount of weight loss combination. That is something many people have reported. So it improves the metabolism, in fact. Okay. Okay. So for cholesterol, the niacin dose needs to be given in one dose, or can be split into small doses per day. Uh, See, normally we can give twice a day. That's okay. Okay. If you're giving up to 500 milligrams, then once is okay. Is it okay?
Yes.
But if
Yes.
you have higher dose like 1 gram, then you can split into two. Okay. So any other question or any other query that people have?
I think we are good to go, Dr. Basim.
So we can stop. If anybody has
Yeah.
a question, they can raise their hand or they can ask something. So I'm just waiting. Somebody has to ask something. Please give a feedback. How did you like the material? Was it useful for everyone or not? Because you know, I've been
based on this, we can plan other webinars. This is important. The feedback is important.
Yeah, the feedback is important if they found it useful for them or not, or you know, something like useful for them.
Sure.
So just if you can give that feedback, that would be nice. Okay.
Okay. So material. So somebody. I mean, material is good. Excellent information. That's what the feedback we've got.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
There's one question.
Okay.
One question more.
That was answered. If niacin inhibits lipolysis,
Yeah.
that was answered.
Okay, fine. So there's no other question in this chat, so we can then finish it off, and then maybe there's another half of the whole thing, which is more and that stuff of David Sinclair. That will another 1 hour's thing, and maybe we can, if possible, people like it, we can continue with that topic later then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep.
Thank you, Dr. Sini, for all your efforts.
Thank you. This is okay. Bye.